During World War II and the Cold War era, which was the rivalry between the US and the Soviet Union of capitalism versus communism, the US changed in its long term diplomatic vision. So, between World War I and World War II, we had the Great Depression, and that was marked by currency devaluations and rampant inflation, economic depression, and a lot of political tension, which ultimately led to World War II. And so the US realized that when countries are economically depressed, it leads to fascism and authoritarian regimes that were demonstrated in World War II. During this time, the US devised a new world system where they wanted to make their allies richer. And so you have the 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement. And what came out of that was four major outcomes. First was the International Monetary Fund to stabilize global currencies. Second was the World Bank to rebuild war-torn countries through loans. Third was that the US dollar would become the global reserve currency, where countries would use a fixed exchange rate, making the US dollar the standard, and that was pegged to gold. And then fourth was that the US would provide military support for its allies. And so from here, we see things such as the 1948 Marshall Plan, where the US was directly injecting capital investment into Europe, particularly Western Europe, because they wanted their allies to be richer. The US also occupied Japan after World War II and essentially established all the American values of capitalism and a particular government. And so what this New World Order was is that the US thought that if they gave countries access to the largest consumer base, which is the US market, and they essentially allowed more tariffs to protect these new economies in Europe and in Japan, then they would have richer capitalistic allies to fight against the threat of communism.